played at noon or 1, something like that. We won our game and jumped in a van. There was a group of us, rode from West Plains to Columbia to watch the game. And so we won ours quarterfinal, went up to watch Hansborough, see if they could beat Vashon. It was just a packed Mizzou arena. Mizzou's men's team would kill to have a crowd like that now.
Right.
And the crowd was just packed. And I remember we were sitting in the middle of a bunch of Vashon fans. We were, that's the only place we could find to sit. And so we're sitting in the middle of these Vashon fans, and they're asking, which one is he? Which one is he? Oh, him? He's going to North Carolina? He's going to North Carolina? He looks sorry. Like they were, doing the things that fans do. They're sizing up the other team. And early in that game, Hansborough dunked on Leon Powell, who played at SEMO. Yeah. And he turned and dunked him and won and just walked across him. And, it took like 4 minutes for the entire Vashon section to say, that guy can play. You know what I mean? There was respect there. And so that Poplar Bluff team was a great team.
Had two NBA players on it.
That's right. Had 2 guys that ended up playing in the NBA. They were the 1 and 2 seed in this bracket. The 3 seed was the 93 Portersville team that was undefeated. And you had the 4 seed was the 91 Portersville team, which was undefeated. And then sprinkled in through there, you had the 85 Malden team that was really good. You had Paul Hale's 2008 Notre Dame team that won a state title. And then I had both of my Bell City state champions in that bracket, who sadly they both lost in the first round. We lost to Jamie Booker and 93 Portersville team, and then we lost to 85 Ray Pugh Malden team. So no shame in getting beat there. At least we won.
You lost to some good teams.
That's right. We got the T-shirt and souvenir to prove it. And but that was a fun bracket. And I'll just say this: Bernie fans rule Twitter. They rule it. And so in the second round, we had Bernie actually upset the Poplar Bluff team with Hansborough. And so that was the first big upset in the bracket, was when Bernie knocked off Bluff. And I thought it was really cool. The finals of that bracket came down to 1993 Portersville against 1993 Bernie. The 2 teams that, it's so
went back
famous
and forth.
They went back and forth all those years ago. You know what? We're going to settle this in a make-believe tournament 27 years later. And I thought it was really cool. Bernie went through, and they actually came out on top of that bracket.
3 times the charm.
That's right. Hard to beat a good team 3 times, Toby.
That's right.
Especially 27 years later. And so moving over to the McFerrin bracket, again, just loaded with some of Coach Mack's great teams. The 90 team was undefeated, 33-0. Coach Mack always said that was his best team. The 96 team was loaded. Jeremy Biles, Rashad Oliver, just a great team. The 92 team in there with Corey Frazier, he was a sophomore on that team. Carlos McCauley was a senior on that team. That was, another just a great Charleston team. You had the 1975 Ricky Frazier Charleston team, which is, Ricky's legendary in Southeast Missouri. Then you had the great New Madrid teams from the early 2000s with Derek Tipler, Alan Ranson, Desmond Sims. They just had a loaded, six, arguably Division I athletes. One guy signed with the New Orleans Saints. That guy's going and playing Division I football, Division I basketball.
During that time, they were excellent at both sports.
They were great at both sports.
They just had a great crop of talent during that run.
And actually, the 2001 New Madrid team did get out of the first round. They beat the 2012 Charleston team with Ryan Tucker, or
Greg
Tucker, Ryan Parham, that group. Yeah. And then they fell to the 1990 Charleston team. The Final Four of this bracket was just epic. You had 1990 Charleston, Lamont Frazier undefeated against the 92 Charleston team, which would have been sophomores when Lamont was a senior. And a lot of the guys on Twitter, Terry Bledsoe and a lot of those guys were talking about this was practice every day, us playing them, And so that
we don't have to vote on it. We know what happened.
Yeah, and so and then the 92 Charleston team might have been the best defensive team of all time. They won the state championship, and I'm going to get the score wrong, but it's close. It was like 45-17 or something like that. They got in the state championship team and held a team averaging 80-plus a game to 17 points. They were just locked down defensively. And then on the other side of that, you had the 96 team, which was awesome team. Their only loss all year was to Peoria Manual. who was, top 15 in the country. They had 3 guys that started for the University of Illinois on that same team. Just a loaded team, and, not even from Missouri. That's the only team that beat that Charleston team. They were probably, the best team in the state that year. I actually saw them. They played Cardinal Ritter that year up at Mineral Area College. And Cardinal Ritter had 2 guys that played in the NBA, Lauren Woods and Chris Carrawell. And Charleston just worked them over. It wasn't even, a close game. And then 75 Charleston team was the other team in the semifinals with Ricky Frazier. Come down to the 90 team and the 96 team. And, of course, the 90 team ended up winning. And I thought that was really cool with all the fans on there from Charleston that voted on this. Some people, it's like, this was my year. Well, this was my year. My team was better. My team was better. But at the end of the day, there was kind of a consensus formed. You know what? The 90 team was our best team. And so, again, I thought that was really cool to see everybody just acknowledge how great that team was. And then skipping over to the old school bracket, this was a bracket with a lot of the 1951 Puxico Indians. Famous team. They invented the fast break. They invented the press. Arnold Ryan coaching back in the day. They had a guy that played in the NBA, actually won a championship in the NBA, Win Wilfong. They beat the Celtics back, 100 years ago. And so, but you had a lot of the old school teams in here. The 1934 Jackson team. You had the 1932 Fruitland team. They don't even have a school anymore. Things like that.
I think this bracket was hard for people to give some respect to, just because the teams are so old. Basketball's changed so much, but
it has.
We do know Puxico teams were great, and they invented the fast break.
That's right, and all of the fast break, press, everything that you see now that come from the Cooksons, Carol Cookson at Advance, Ronnie Cookson at Scott County Central, they are from Puxico. They played for Arnold Ryan. They came up under Coach Ryan. And so a lot of stuff now that you see guys like me and you doing, Greg Hollifield doing, it all traces back to the old Puxico teams playing in the log cabin gym. And so, but you had the 2017 Oran team in there, a recent team that won under Joe Shoemaker, the 2011 Sykeston team undefeated, Greg Hollifield, the 87 Notre Dame team that I talked about, 1996 Richland team. That's a team that actually knocked us out of the state tournament. That was my senior year. And so they beat us. And then the 69 Oran team with Fred Johnson, and we talked about at the free throw line, was in this one. And the Final Four in this bracket come down to 51 Puxico against 2011 Sykeston, the 87 Notre Dame team against the 1969 Oran team. And so, again, you had a team in Oran who didn't win a state title even in their own year, but getting some respect, saying, hey, that was a great team. Right. And Oran is another fan base with a lot of people on Twitter, you know what I mean? And so Oran, Sykeston, and Bernie might be ranked all time in Twitter.
And when it comes to things like this, you want numbers on Twitter.
You need numbers. You need a Twitter army. And so it come down to 51 Puxico and Sykeston, the 2011 Sykeston team, and that was actually an even tie. You don't hardly ever see this in these polls, but it was a tie. And so I had to pick which team I wanted to win. And, I had to go with Sykeston. I just think, having seen that team, that's one of the deepest teams I've seen come out of here in a while. And they were unique because they didn't have one superstar great player like we're talking about Ricky Frazier, or Lamont Frazier, or Otto Porter, or Tyler Hansbrough. They didn't have one of those just great players. They had 9 or 10 really good players. Mm-hmm. And the way that they played – And they played so well together, so well coached. And so, and then on the other side, 87 Notre Dame ended up winning theirs, and it came down to Sykeston and Notre Dame, and that seemed to be a theme all through the 2000 to 2010 decade. And Sykeston, they did come out on top of this bracket, and so that sets us up with Bernie from 93, 1990 Charleston, and then the 2011 Sykeston team. And the last bracket was the Cookson region. And, both of us are from Scott County Central, graduates, alumni. I can name you the 5 starters from just about every Scott Central team, even the teams before I was born. I was on Matt Brucker's show the other day, and I was telling him just all the nights I'd sit and talk to Coach Cookson while he dipped those chocolate chips cookies in sweet tea. And, we just sit and talk basketball, and he'd tell me about this team, tell me about that team. And so I feel like I know these teams, even though I didn't see them play.
Right.
And I know what Coach thought about these teams and which teams he thought were good. And so, of course, they're all good. They all won a state championship. But the number one seed in there was the 1980 bunch, 32-1, the Show Me Kings. They wrote a book about this team. They were so good over a 2-year stretch. Donnie McClinton, Melvin Porter, Jeff Limbaugh, who could run up a hill both ways with a bucket of ice on his foot. Through snow. I mean, we heard, things about Jeff Limbaugh.
Ankle swollen so bad they had to cut his shoe off.
Could not have possibly been true. And so, and we both know Jeff well, so we can
I got to work with him for a couple summers in high school and hear some of the stories from him too. So. Yeah.
And so they're just as outrageous from both sides of the fence, no matter if Coach tells it or Jeff tells it. But the number 2 seed, 2010, that was with Otto Porter Jr., Bubba, and Bobby Hatchett. That was his senior year. That was a really good team. You had the Otto senior teams in here, the Marcus Timmons teams in here. Of course, when Marcus was in school, 1988, 89, 90, and 91, over those 4 years, Marcus Timmons started all 4 years. They went 130 wins and 3 losses. 3 losses in 4 years. To this day, he's the only player that's ever started on 4 state championship teams. Only boy that's ever started on 4.
Right.
And so he's, Mr. Show Me Basketball his senior year. He's actually the uncle to Otto Porter Jr. His sister is Bubba's mom. And so, again, that's going to be a theme through this whole bracket. When you start working your way through it, you get down to 1980 against 1990. You got Mayfield Timmons against Marcus Timmons. You got Jerry wasn't on that team, but, on the other side of the bracket, you got 91 against 2010. You got Mark Mosley against Bobby Hatchett, father against son. You got Marcus Timmons against Otto Porter Jr., nephew.
That's pretty cool matchup right there.
Another spot in the bracket, you had 76 against 2009. You had Ricky Thomas against Drew Thomas, father and son. You had Desmond Williams against Frog Williams, who's father and son. You've got, just all through there, you've got, generations of players, of family playing against each other. And the bracket came down to the 1990 team against the 2010 team. 90 team was the one that lost by 2 in the finals of the Christmas tournament to Charleston. That's the only loss they had. Marcus Timmons was a junior. You had Lynn Turner, Roger Gibson as the forwards, both 6'2", just incredibly strong. I've seen Lynn Turner pick up every weight on the stage and bench press it one day, back when they lifted on the old stage. I mean, Lynn was one of the strongest human beings I've ever seen. Great athlete. And then the guards on that team, Derek Adams and Mark Mosley. Derek's daughter is actually a really good player for Scott Central girls right now. And, they were a loaded team. And then, of course, the 2010 team, you had arguably the best duo ever, Bobby Hatchett and Bubba Porter. And not knocking anything with their supporting cast, but, those two guys could really play. And it came down to the 2010 team ended up winning. And so that put us in a Final Four that I thought was really cool. You had the 90 Charleston team against the 93 Bernie team. And then the other side of the bracket, you had 2010 Scott Central against 2011 Sykeston. And that set up a rematch, Toby, that we didn't get back in 2011.
Yeah.
2009, Scott Central played Sykeston. First time that those two schools have played in 30-something years. And I won't get into all the history and but my mother was in school then when that happened, the incident that happened. Scott Central beat Sykeston. Somebody got mad. Somebody threw a brick, this and that. Some of those things are exaggerated. Somebody got stabbed in the bathroom. I don't think that's true. But the after the game, how crazy it got, part of that's true because my mom was actually on the bus when it happened. And so some of those things I know are true. So the two schools, they're 5 miles apart. They decide they're not going to play anymore. They don't play for 30-something years. 2009, they play at the Show Me Center. They sell it out, put it on pay-per-view. The schools involved all made a fortune financially.
Yeah.
And it was just a great game. It came down to the last possession where Bobby Hatchett may or may not have got fouled. Scott Central loses by 2. They do the rematch in 2010. This 2010 Scott Central team blows Sykeston off the floor, beats him 20.
Yeah.
So in 2011, okay, let's have the rematch. Otto Porter's